why you're overthinking everything and how to stop. Imagine this: you're lying awake at night, replaying a conversation from earlier in the day. You think, why did I say that? Did they think I was weird? What if they secretly don't like me? And suddenly your mind spirals into a vortex of self-doubt. Sound familiar? Overthinking is the silent killer of happiness. It paralyzes us, makes us second-guess everything, and keeps us trapped in a loop of endless analysis. But what if I told you that the less you care, the happier you'll be? Now, I don't mean you should stop caring about everything: your goals, your relationships, your values. But what if you stopped caring about things that don't actually matter? What if you embraced the idea that most of what you obsess over is just noise? This is where Taoist wisdom comes in. The ancient Taoists believed that life is like a river, constantly flowing, ever changing. But the more you try to control it, the more you struggle. But if you learn to flow with it, you find peace. So why do we overthink? Because we believe that if we analyze every detail, we can control the outcome. We think that by worrying about the future, we can prevent bad things from happening. But here's the truth: overthinking doesn't give you control. It just gives you anxiety. Think about the worst-case scenarios you've imagined in your life. How many of them actually happened? And even if they did, were they really as bad as you feared? Most of what we worry about never comes true, and when it does, we usually handle it better than we expected. So why do we waste so much time torturing ourselves with thoughts about things that may never happen? Here's something even crazier: overthinking is often just an illusion of productivity. We feel like we're doing something important because our minds are busy, but in reality, we're just running in circles. Imagine a person sitting in a rocking chair, rocking back and forth as fast as they can. They feel like they're exerting energy, but they're not actually going anywhere. That's what overthinking does. It tricks you into feeling like you're making progress when you're just exhausting yourself. So how do we stop? The first step is realizing that most things don't need to be analyzed to death. Ask yourself, will this matter in a week? A month? A year? If the answer is no, let it go. Taoist philosophy teaches us that life isn't meant to be grasped too tightly. When you hold onto water, it slips through your fingers. But if you relax your hand, the water simply rests in your palm. The same goes for life.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Another important lesson from Taoism is Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. It means acting in alignment with the natural flow of life instead of forcing things. When you stop forcing things, they often work out better than when you try to control every detail. Think about the last time you tried really hard to impress someone. Chances are it felt unnatural, maybe even awkward. But the times when you were just yourself, without overthinking, that's when everything flowed effortlessly. So here's a challenge: the next time you catch yourself overthinking, pause. Take a deep breath. Ask yourself, am I solving a real problem, or am I just creating stress for myself? If it's the latter, let it go. The world won't end if you stop micromanaging your thoughts. In fact, it might just get better. But what about the fear of failure? What about the fear of making the wrong decision? This is where we really have to challenge our thinking. What if failure isn't something to be feared, but something to be embraced? What if making the wrong decision is actually how we grow? Think about a time in your life when something didn't go as planned. Maybe you lost a job, ended a relationship, or made a big mistake. At that moment, it felt like the end of the world. But looking back, didn't it lead you somewhere new, somewhere you never expected? Sometimes, the worst things that happen to us turn out to be the best things in disguise. So why are we so afraid of making mistakes? Why do we let fear of failure keep us stuck in overthinking? The truth is, life isn't about making perfect choices. It's about making choices, learning from them, and moving forward. No amount of overthinking will ever give you certainty. But action, taking a step, even when you're unsure, that's what leads to real growth. At the end of the day, overthinking is just fear wearing a disguise. It's fear of the unknown, fear of making the wrong move, fear of what people think. But here's the thing, life is uncertain. It always has been, and it always will be. The more you try to control it, the more miserable you become. But the moment you accept that you can't control everything, that's when you find freedom. So what would happen if you stopped overthinking? If you stopped worrying about things beyond your control and just lived? Wouldn't life feel lighter? Wouldn't you feel happier? And if that's true, then why aren't we all doing it? How letting go of control leads to true freedom. Imagine standing in the middle of a river, trying to hold the water in your hands. The more you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. This is what happens when we try to control life. We cling to certainty, to predictability, to the illusion that if we just think hard enough, plan well enough, or worry long enough, we can shape the world exactly how we want it. But life, like water, doesn't work that way. So why do we fight so hard for control? Because deep down we fear uncertainty. We want guarantees. We want to know that if we make the right choices, everything will turn out perfectly. But here's the truth: control is an illusion. No matter how much you plan, life will always throw surprises your way. And paradoxically, the more you try to control things, the more anxious and powerless you feel. Think about this: when have you been happiest in life? Was it when you were micromanaging every detail, obsessing over the future, trying to anticipate every possible outcome? Or was it when you were fully present, immersed in the moment, allowing things to unfold naturally? Most of our suffering comes not from life itself, but from our resistance to it. We get stuck in our heads, replaying past mistakes, worrying about things we can't change, creating stress over problems that don't even exist yet. But what if we let go? What if we stop trying to control everything and instead learn to trust? This is where Taoist wisdom offers a profound insight. The key to peace isn't in controlling life, but in aligning with it. The Taoists call this Wu Wei, effortless action. It means moving with the current of life instead of against it. It doesn't mean being passive or giving up, but rather acting in harmony with the natural flow of events. Think of a surfer. A bad surfer fights the waves, trying to force the ocean to obey them. A good surfer reads the waves, adapts, and flows with them. Life works the same way. When you stop resisting the natural rhythm of things, you don't lose control, you gain real power. But letting go isn't easy. It requires trust. Trust that things will work out, even if you don't have all the answers. Trust that you don't need to overanalyze every decision to make the right one. Trust that even when things go wrong, you will adapt, learn, and grow. Ask yourself, what's something you've been holding onto too tightly? A relationship? A career path? An identity? A fear of failure? What would happen if you loosened your grip, even just a little? Would you lose everything? Or would you finally feel free? Here's a simple but powerful practice. The next time you feel overwhelmed by overthinking, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what am I trying to control right now? Then remind yourself, I don't need to have all the answers. I don't need to force things. I can trust the flow of life. Notice how your body relaxes when you do this. That's the feeling of freedom. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you stop treating life like a problem to solve and start experiencing it as it is. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You become lighter. You become happier. you realize that the less you try to control life, the more beautifully it unfolds. So if control is just an illusion, and if true peace comes from letting go, then why do we keep holding on? The paradox of caring less, but living more. There's a strange truth about life: the less you desperately cling to things, the more they seem to come to you. The less you obsess over people's opinions, the more they respect you. The less you chase happiness, the more it finds you. It sounds contradictory, but this is the paradox of caring less. When you stop trying so hard to control everything, life starts to flow naturally in your favor. But let's be clear, caring less doesn't mean becoming indifferent, lazy, or detached from everything that matters. It means freeing yourself from the unnecessary weight of over-concern about what others think, about mistakes, about whether every little thing in life is going according to plan. It means shifting from an anxious, grasping mindset to a state of ease and trust. Think about the last time you were deeply engaged in something you loved, maybe a hobby, a conversation, or even just walking outside, lost in thought. You weren't overthinking. You weren't constantly evaluating whether you were doing it right. You were just present. That's what happens when you stop over-caring about everything. You become fully alive in the moment. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that worrying makes us more responsible, that if we don't stress over things, we're being careless. But ask yourself, has overthinking ever truly made you better at something? Or has it only drained your energy, making you less effective? The truth is, when you stop over-caring about things that don't matter, you actually become more present and intentional about the things that do. Consider this: why do we admire people who seem effortlessly confident? It's because they're not trying so hard. They're not obsessed with how they're being perceived. They're just existing unapologetically. And ironically, that's what makes them so magnetic. When you stop seeking approval, approval often comes naturally. When you stop fearing failure, you take the risks that lead to success. When you stop overanalyzing, you start truly experiencing life. This is the essence of Taoist wisdom: letting go of unnecessary effort, embracing simplicity, and allowing life to unfold without force. The Taoists understood that the more we try to control and perfect life, the more complicated and stressful it becomes. But when we relax into the flow, when we stop making everything a struggle, we unlock a deep sense of peace. So how do we apply this in real life? How do we care less without becoming careless? The answer is balance. Care about the things that align with your values, but don't waste energy on things outside your control. Care about your relationships, but don't obsess over whether people like you. Care about your goals, but don't let fear of failure stop you from taking action. Here's a question to reflect on: what's one thing in your life that you've been over-caring about? A decision? A mistake? Someone's opinion? What would happen if you loosened your grip on it, if you allowed yourself to just be, without the weight of constant evaluation? The paradox is this: when you care less about the things that don't matter, you actually live more fully in the things that do. You stop wasting mental energy on imaginary problems, and you start channeling that energy into real experiences, meaningful relationships, and personal growth. So if happiness, success, and peace come more easily when we stop gripping life so tightly, then why do we keep making everything harder than it needs to be? The simple truth that will set you free: here's the truth, most people spend their whole lives avoiding life is not as complicated as we make it. The stress, the anxiety, the overthinking, it's mostly self-imposed. We create problems in our minds that don't actually exist. We replay conversations, analyze situations, and worry about things that are far beyond our control. But what if the secret to peace isn't in solving all these imaginary problems, but in realizing that most of them don't need to be solved at all? Think about this. How many times have you looked back at something you once obsessed over and realized it didn't matter? That breakup you thought you'd never recover from, the embarrassing moment you thought people would never forget, the decision you agonized over for weeks, none of it held the weight you once believed it did. And yet, in the moment, it felt all-consuming. This is the trap of the mind. It convinces us that every little thing is a crisis, that we need to figure everything out right now, that we have to control every outcome. But here's the simple truth: you don't. Most things resolve themselves if you stop forcing them. Most situations are not as serious as they seem. Most of the weight you're carrying is completely unnecessary. So what happens when you finally accept this? Freedom. The kind of freedom that allows you to laugh at your mistakes instead of punishing yourself for them. The kind of freedom that lets you take risks without being paralyzed by fear. The kind of freedom that allows you to truly enjoy life instead of constantly analyzing it. This is what the Taoists understood so well. They didn't try to fight life, control it, or overthink it. They flowed with it. They embraced uncertainty instead of fearing it. They accepted that not everything needed an answer, and that sometimes the best response to life is simply to experience it without judgment. Here's the simplest way to start applying this wisdom the next time you catch yourself overthinking. Pause and ask yourself, does this actually matter? Not in some exaggerated, worst-case scenario way, but in reality. Will this matter in a month? A year? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, take action, but don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. And if you're still struggling to let go, remember this life is happening right now, not in your thoughts about the past, not in your worries about the future. Right now. Every moment you spend lost in overthinking is a moment you're missing out on actually living. So what would happen if, just for today, you stopped trying to control everything? If you stopped overanalyzing every little thing and just let yourself be, would the world fall apart? Or would you finally feel free? The simple truth is this: you don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to carry every worry. The less you try to control, the more life opens itself to you. And when you finally let go, you'll realize you were never really trapped. You were just holding on to things you didn't need. So if freedom is this simple, if happiness is within reach, then why aren't more of us choosing it?